My brother bullied me growing up, so I refused to help him when he lost his job and now he's begging. My older brother, I'll call him Jake, not his real name, bullied me relentlessly throughout my entire childhood. And I don't mean the normal sibling rivalry or teasing. I mean relentless, to the point that I still have scars, some literal, mostly figurative, from what he did. Now he's the one on his knees, metaphorically speaking, begging me for help after he lost his job and hit rock bottom, and I refused. I told him no, I wouldn't help. Now he's begging, my parents are furious with me, and I feel... I don't know what I feel. A mix of vindication and guilt and anger and sadness. It's a mess. Let me back up and give some context, because I know how bad this all sounds without the backstory. I'm 30 now, and Jake is 35. Growing up, Jake made my life hell. He was always bigger, stronger, and meaner. For as long as I can remember, he delighted in tormenting me. When I was like 6 and he was 11, he convinced me I was adopted as a joke and made me cry for days. My parents told me it was just a joke, but they didn't really punish him. As we got older, the jokes got crueler. He'd wait till my parents weren't around, and then do stuff like pin me down and fart on my face. Gross and childish, I know. Or steal my homework and rip it up so I'd get in trouble at school. When I was 13, he and his friends locked me in a closet for hours during his birthday party, just because they thought it was funny to hear me beg to be let out. The physical bullying was bad. He gave me more than one black eye, a bloody nose, countless bruises. But the emotional bullying was worse. He'd call me worthless, ugly, stupid. If I ever achieved something, like getting an A or winning a school award, he'd snort that I must have cheated, or say the award was meaningless. If I had a crush on a girl, he'd find out and then humiliate me about it in front of her. One time, in high school, I finally got a date to a dance. I was over the moon. Jake, who had already graduated by then, found out who my date was. He still had friends in my school, I guess, and told her all sorts of lies about me, like that I collected weird porn or had a secret baby with someone, just off-the-wall reputation-ruining lies. She canceled on me last minute, and I found out weeks later from a friend what Jake had done. His excuse, when I confronted him? Just trying to protect you from getting your heart broken, bro. You should be thanking me. He smirked as he said it. I never forgot that. My parents did not handle this well. My dad would sometimes tell Jake to knock it off if he directly witnessed something, but he had this attitude of boys will be boys, and he weirdly thought it was basically my job as the younger brother to toughen up. I think he believed all this was making me stronger. My mom mostly tried to keep the peace. She'd say things like, just ignore him and he'll stop. But he didn't stop. If I reacted, he loved it. If I tried to ignore him, he'd escalate until I couldn't ignore it. It got to the point where I dreaded being at home. I spent a lot of time at my friend Robbie's house, or locked in my room, which only sometimes kept Jake out. When Jake went off to college, I was 16 then, it was a relief. He went to a state school a couple hours away, so he'd still come home some weekends and holidays, and every time he did, he'd find a way to mess with me. It was like a sport for him. He'd break or lose my stuff, tease me about not having a girlfriend, subtly insult me at family dinners. He even brought a girlfriend home once and told her fake embarrassing stories about me to get a laugh. Like that I wet the bed until I was 12, for the record, not true. Big or small, he never missed a chance. The day he moved out after college, he got a job in another city, was one of the best days of my life. I remember thinking, maybe he'll mature now that he's in the real world. Without him around, I finally had some peace. I started therapy in college to deal with a lot of the anxiety and self-esteem issues that being under his thumb for so long had caused. It helped somewhat. I moved to a different city after college myself and built a life on my own terms. My contact with Jake was minimal. I'd see him at some holidays, I avoided many of them, and occasionally at family events. We never got along, but as adults it was usually just cold civility or minor snarky comments. He couldn't exactly give me wedgies at the Thanksgiving table, though I'm sure he would have if he could. Once, when I was about 25, I remember him making a toast at Christmas, half drunk, saying, "Cheers to my little brother, who actually made something of himself." Who would have seen that coming in front of everyone? My parents scolded him for that, but he just laughed it off as a joke. That's the kind of relationship we had. Me trying to avoid being humiliated, him taking any chance to put me down, even in adulthood. Meanwhile, I ended up doing okay for myself. I'm not rich by any stretch, but I've got a stable job in IT, bought a small condo, have a decent car, and I'm self-sufficient. Jake's path was rockier. He worked in sales for a while, used cars, then some marketing job, then real estate. He had some good years financially, but he also blew a lot of money on going out and keeping up a flashy image. He had bouts of unemployment or job hopping. He got married when he was 28 to a woman I'll call Tina. Honestly, I wondered what she saw in him, but people change, right? They had 2 kids, my nephews. I'm not very close with them. I sent gifts on birthdays and stuff, but being around Jake was never pleasant, so I kept my distance. At family gatherings, he mostly acted like the charming, funny guy, but he'd still slip in a jab at me here or there when he could. I endured it or avoided him. Now to the current situation. About 2 months ago, Jake lost his job. He was working a corporate gig at a retail chain's headquarters, a middle management thing. The company downsized, and he got laid off. I heard about it first from my mom. She called, sounding worried, saying, "Jake is having a hard time, he lost his job. You should reach out to him." I gave a non-committal yeah, I'll think about it. I didn't reach out. Frankly, I didn't know what to say. A week later, my mom calls again, more insistent. Jake was struggling to find a new job, and because he and Tina had always lived basically paycheck to paycheck while maintaining an expensive lifestyle, big mortgage on a fancy house, 2 leased SUVs, kids in private school, etc., they were in serious financial trouble fast. My mom was helping them with groceries and some bills, but my parents aren't wealthy either. They couldn't sustain Jake's family long term. Mom said, "Maybe you could help him out, just until he gets back on his feet." That lit a fire of anger in me. Help him out? The way he helped me out when we were younger? I told my mom I wasn't comfortable with that. She got upset and said, "He's your brother. Family helps family." I shot back, "Like when he was family and made my life a living hell? Did he ever help me when I needed it?" She started crying and said she knew it had been bad between us, but that we needed to put it aside now because this is serious. I told her I had to go and hung up. Then I started getting messages from my dad, which is surprising because he usually stays out of this stuff. He basically texted, "I know your brother was hard on you, but he's turning to you now. Be the bigger man." That phrase, "be the bigger man," just made me see red. I feel like I've been the bigger man by not seeking revenge or holding a grudge as openly as I could have. I swallowed so much pain for years while they told me to just put up with it. And now they want me to swoop in and save him? It felt so unfair. Finally, Jake himself called me. Actually, he tried a few times. I let it go to voicemail twice. By the 3rd time, curiosity, or maybe that tiny hopeful part of me that wondered if he'd actually apologize, got the better of me. I answered. He sounded off, not his confident, cocky self. He was quiet, almost meek. He said, "Hey," asked how I was. I cut that short and said something like, "I know things are rough. What do you need?" Yeah, a bit cold, but I wasn't about to make this easy for him. He actually said, "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I know I was a shitty brother to you. I regret a lot of it, okay?" That floored me. Jake never acknowledges he did anything wrong, ever. I was so shocked I just sat there silent. He took that silence as permission to keep talking. He basically poured his heart out, or seemed to. He said he'd lost his job, that they were drowning financially, that my parents didn't have much more to give, that he was going to lose his house and maybe more if he couldn't figure something out. He said he was desperate and that I was the only person he could ask for help. He asked if I could loan him some money or if I had any connections to help him get a job. He swore up and down it would be just a loan, that he'd pay me back every cent. He even said, "I know I don't deserve it, but it's for my kids. Please, if not for me, do it for them. They shouldn't have to suffer because I was a crappy brother." I'll be honest, hearing all that was really hard. I'd imagined scenarios of him apologizing before, and how I'd respond. In my fantasies, I'd tell him to go to hell, or laugh in his face, or slam the door on him. But here it was, kind of happening, and I just felt this wave of, I don't even know. There was a knot in my stomach. Part of me was like, he finally admitted it. He finally apologized. Sort of. Another part of me was like, oh, so now you admit it, conveniently when you need something? How do I know this isn't just manipulation? I didn't say anything at first. He kept talking to fill the silence. He said he was sorry multiple times, that we were kids back then and he was messed up and jealous, and he didn't understand how much he was hurting me and blah blah. It sounded rehearsed, but also like it hurt him to say it. Hard to describe. When he finally finished his plea, he asked plainly, "So, can you help me?" And I replied, just as plainly, "No." There's a silence. Then he kind of half sobbed. "What? Why? Please, I'm begging you." And something in me just snapped. I said, "Why?" "Because you made my life a living hell, Jake. You think you can just say sorry, and I'll forget everything? You think I'm gonna bail you out after what you did to me?" I was shaking, my voice rising. Years of pent-up resentment poured out. I basically told him that actions have consequences, and that he, of all people, doesn't deserve a handout from me. He kept trying to interject, saying he was sorry, saying that we were just kids back then, that he's changed, that he was in a bad place when we were younger. He even said, if I could go back and punch my teenage self in the face for how I treated you, I would, and he repeated that his kids don't deserve to suffer. I snapped back. Did I deserve to suffer when I was just a kid? You put me through hell and never paid any price for it. Now life is making you pay, and it's not my job to rescue you. He was full on crying at this point. I have never seen or heard my brother cry like that. It was mostly choked sobs and whimpers, but still, he just kept saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so effing sorry. Please." I told him, "I can't help you. I'm sorry your kids are in this situation, truly, but you put yourself here. This is on you." And then, with him still sobbing and begging, I hung up. I hung up on my brother while he was pleading for his family's survival. I put my phone down and just kind of lost it. I had a full-blown panic attack or something. My heart was racing. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I got dizzy. I don't know if it was guilt or adrenaline or a mix of everything. I had to sit on the floor and put my head between my knees. When that passed, I felt this strange mix of triumph and horror. Triumph because, damn, I'd finally stood up to him and didn't let him take advantage of me. Horror because, what kind of person am I? Did years of his bullying turn me into someone that cold? His kids are innocent, and I could afford to loan him a few thousand without hurting myself financially. I don't owe him anything. But could I live with myself if they end up homeless or something and I might have prevented it? Then the fallout started. Within an hour of that call, my parents were blowing up my phone. My mom left a voicemail in tears, asking what happened, saying Jake called her sobbing and told her I refused to help. She said, "How could you turn your back on your own brother?" I texted her back a pretty blunt message. "You and Dad turned your back on me for years, while you let him abuse me." Probably a cheap shot via text, but I was boiling. She replied with a long text basically saying this isn't about the past, it's about a real crisis now, and that she understood I was hurt, but that I needed to be the bigger person now. She said my nephews don't deserve to suffer and begged me to reconsider. My dad then texted something more curt, along the lines of, "I raised you better than this. This is your brother. We don't turn our backs on family. If you do this, then you're not the son I thought you were." That one hurt. It felt like an ultimatum or a huge guilt trip. Also a bit rich considering I could argue they turned their backs on me when I was the one being hurt. I didn't respond to my parents after that. I felt overwhelmed and cornered. I just sort of shut down for the rest of the day, ignoring calls and texts. I needed space to think. I spent that night just pacing around my apartment, replaying a million scenarios in my head, from childhood memories to possible future outcomes. I hardly slept. The next day, yesterday, I got another call from Jake. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message, his voice sounding raw and broken. He said he understood why I was angry, that he won't bother me again after this, but that he wanted me to know that no matter what, he loves me because I'm his brother, and he's sorry for everything. He said he won't ever forget that I was the only one who could have saved him, and I chose not to. That felt like a guilt trip masked as a goodbye. It made me angry and miserable all at once, so that's where it stands. My brother is desperate, and at rock bottom, my parents are furious and think I'm heartless, and I'm here full of conflicted emotions. On one hand, I feel justified. He treated me like garbage for years and never faced consequences until now. On the other hand, I feel guilty, like I'm letting my bitterness harm not just him, but also my nephews and even my parents, who are distraught over this. I keep asking myself, am I a terrible person for this? Am I obligated to help just because we're blood, even after everything he did to me? Part of me thinks, screw that, I don't owe him anything. Another part of me is whispering, be the bigger man, which is so frustrating because that phrase has been used against me before. As of now, I haven't given him anything and I haven't changed my mind. I'm just waiting, I guess. My phone's been quieter today. Maybe they're giving me space or maybe they're just disappointed. I know eventually I'll have to talk to my parents again and deal with all this. I just don't know what to do. I feel like a little kid again in some ways, dealing with the school bully, except now everyone is telling the kid to help the bully. It's a mind trip, to say the least. I'll update if anything major happens or if I make a decision. Right now I just need to lay low and think. Thanks for reading this if you did. I really needed to vent. Update 1. First, thank you for the outpouring of responses. I didn't expect so many people to read and share their thoughts. It's been a whirlwind couple of weeks since my original post, and things have escalated in ways I didn't see coming. A few days after I posted, I got a frantic call from my mom in the middle of the night. Jake had been in an accident. He got extremely drunk and drove his car into a ditch on a back road. He wasn't killed, thank God, but it was bad. The scary part is, it might not have been just an accident. My mom was sobbing, saying, I think he tried to hurt himself. He left a really scary voicemail and now this. I felt my blood turn to ice. I wanted him to face consequences, yes, but I never wanted that. I rushed to the hospital where they took him. My parents and Jake's wife Tina were in the waiting area, absolutely beside themselves. My mom hugged me like I was the one who almost died. Tina looked relieved that I came, but I could also see some hurt or resentment in her eyes, maybe because I hadn't helped earlier. It was tense. We learned Jake's injuries weren't life-threatening. A concussion, a broken arm, cuts and bruises. They were keeping him for a bit, though, because it looked like he might have intended to harm himself. The police found an almost empty whiskey bottle in the car, and the voicemail he'd left my mom an hour before the crash was basically a goodbye. Hearing that, I felt like absolute garbage. I had wanted him to face the music, but I never imagined he would try to end it. That realization hit me hard. They let us see him once he was stable. When I walked into that hospital room with my parents, I barely recognized my brother. He looked small, broken. First thing he asked in a weak voice was, "Are the kids okay?" They weren't in the car, thank God. They were home with Tina's parents. We told him the kids were fine. Then he noticed me hanging in the back, his eyes filled with tears. I didn't even know he had so many tears in him after the last couple weeks, and he croaked out, "You came." I just nodded, not trusting myself to speak yet. My dad gently suggested that he and my mom step out to give us a minute. Suddenly, it was just me and Jake, alone. It was awkward as hell, at first. I think the first thing I said was, "What the hell were you thinking?" Probably not the most gentle opener. He just looked down, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry." I asked him, "Were you really trying to, you know?" I couldn't say the words. He just shrugged a little and said, "I don't know. I was drunk. I just didn't care what happened to me. I thought you'd all be better off." Hearing my brother say that broke something in me. I got angry and emotional all at once. I said, "So your plan was to orphan your kids from their father? Seriously?" He started crying softly and said he felt like a failure as a husband, a father, a brother, that he thought everyone hated him and would be better without him. He said, "I deserve it. All of it." I sighed, or maybe choked up, I don't know. "No one deserves to die, you idiot, and your kids sure as hell don't deserve to lose their dad." I was trying to sound stern, but my voice was shaking. He kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," over and over. Not just for this, for everything. I was a terrible brother. You were right about consequences. I can't live with what I did to you, to everyone. Man, I didn't expect to cry, but I felt tears in my eyes too. I kind of half yelled, "You don't get to check out. You don't get to do that. You have people who need you. If you want to make things right, staying is a good start." I had this mix of anger and pleading in my tone. He just nodded, still crying. "I know. I'm sorry," he repeated. I think I just stood there, breathing hard, trying to get my own emotions under control. I eventually put a hand on his shoulder, first time I'd willingly touched him in I don't know how long, and said, "Just get better, okay? We'll deal with everything else later. Just don't pull this shit again?" He nodded, closing his eyes. I left the room to let him rest. My mom was right outside, eyes red from crying. She asked how it went, and I just said he apologized, which felt like such an understatement of everything that happened in there, but it was all I could get out. My mom hugged me, my dad patted my back, and Tina gave me this long hug and whispered, "Thank you," through her tears. Over the next few days, things were intense. Jake was put on a psychiatric hold for a couple days and started on antidepressants and therapy while in the hospital. That whole incident scared the crap out of him, and all of us. Meanwhile, I had some decisions to make. Seeing him like that, it really messed me up. The anger I had was still there, but I also saw my brother at the lowest anyone can be, and I didn't want to kick him while he was down, or worse, risk him trying something like that again. So, I made a decision. I told Tina and my parents that I would help financially on certain conditions. 1, any money goes directly to what needs to be paid. I wasn't just handing Jake a wad of cash. 2, Jake must continue therapy regularly. 3, we all, and I mean all of us, me, Jake, Mom, Dad, attend family therapy together at least a few times. Because there's a lot of shit in our family that we all need to confront, not just him. I expected maybe some resistance or, "Is that really necessary?" comments, but everyone agreed without hesitation. I think the near tragedy shook them enough to be on board with anything that might help, so I helped. I paid 2 months of their mortgage, directly to the lender, and I gave Tina enough for immediate bills and groceries, etc. My parents helped too, covering their utilities and some other costs. Basically, we created a temporary safety net to stop things from freefall, while Jake recovers and starts looking for work and works on himself. I visited Jake a few more times in the hospital. The visits were short, but the conversations we had, I don't know, it felt like something shifted. He was subdued, humble. He thanked me for helping, especially his kids. I told him very clearly, I'm doing it for them, and for Mom, who practically had a breakdown. "I'm still pissed at you, but I don't want you dead." He said he understood and that he was going to spend the rest of his life making it up to everyone, especially me. I didn't know how to respond to that. I think I just said, focus on one day at a time. When he was discharged, there was a bit of a family meeting with the hospital counselor, and we made a plan for his follow-up care. He's doing therapy, anger management, AA, they suggested it because of the drinking, the works. To his credit, he's been following through so far. It's been about 2 weeks since he's been out. I've been checking in via Tina, or my parents to make sure, and they say he hasn't missed a session. Now, about the family therapy I insisted on. We had our first session last week, another one earlier this week, and more scheduled. Let me tell you, those sessions are rough. In the first one, I let it all out. Years of pain, specific incidents, how they affected me, how the lack of support made it worse. I was shaking and crying. My mom was sobbing. My dad was stoic but had tears in his eyes. I've never seen him cry. Jake was just a mess listening to it. But he listened. He actually heard me, I think, in a way he never did before. He admitted, during therapy, some of why he targeted me. Jealousy, he thought I was the favorite, which is crazy from my perspective because I sure didn't feel like it, but I guess from his, I got attention as the younger one. Our dad basically encouraged him at times to toughen me up. That part made me really angry, and my dad actually apologized in the session for it. And Jake said as he got older, he was unhappy and insecure and took it out on me because I was an easy target and he resented that I was doing well. None of this excuses it, and he didn't offer it as an excuse, just as an explanation. He broke down saying he wishes he could take it back, that he knows he might never fully be forgiven, but he's going to try to be better. My parents also apologized to me. That was big. They admitted they dropped the ball in a huge way. My mom said not standing up for me is her biggest regret. My dad said he thought he was doing the right thing at the time. Figured it would make me tougher, but sees now how wrong he was. There was a lot of tears. It's not a magic fix, but it's a start I never thought I'd see. So here we are now. Jake is back at home, working on himself, and slowly trying to find a new job. That's secondary to his mental health right now, but it's on the horizon. I've continued to help with bills for now, but we've set a timeline, a few months, after which he'll need to figure things out on his own or downsize significantly. He knows this, and there's no argument from him on it. He and I have actually talked a few times one-on-one, outside of therapy now, just casual chats. It's surreal. He's been decent. Like, he asks how I'm doing and actually listens. He even asked me for advice on something minor, setting up a budget spreadsheet of all things. It's like he's trying to show me he's changed, piece by piece. I'm cautious. I still have a lot of emotional bruises. I forgave him enough to save his life, but forgetting? That's not happening anytime soon. I told him as much, that I'm still wary and it will take time. He said he understands, and that this is entirely his own doing. Some people might say I caved, or I'm a sucker for helping. Maybe they're right. All I know is when I thought about my brother not being in this world anymore, I couldn't bear it. Despite everything, he's family. And maybe there's a chance we can actually build something healthier from this disaster. I'm not naive. I'm sure we'll hit bumps in the road, and maybe this all falls apart. But I'm trying hope on for size, cautiously. So that's the update. My brother is alive and getting help. I'm helping him, with boundaries in place. My family is confronting years of buried shit, and I feel oddly lighter. Like, I don't have to carry all this anger alone. I've put it out there, and we're dealing with it. It's far from a happy ending, more like the messy beginning of a long journey. But at least it's not the tragic ending it was veering toward. I'll update again in the future if something significant changes. For now, I'm just taking it day by day. Update 2. Final. It's been about 3 months since my last update. I wanted to come back and share how things have unfolded, especially for those who were invested in this story. Spoiler. There's no dramatic twist ending, just a slow, sometimes painful, ongoing process that's actually looking a lot more hopeful than before. First, the family therapy has continued. We've done 5 sessions so far, with another planned next month. Those sessions are some of the hardest and most healing conversations I've ever had. In one session, I directly asked my brother, why me? Why was making my life hell your favorite pastime? It was a raw question, and his answer was equally raw. He said some of it was just the thrill of power. That hurt to hear. Some of it was misguided attempts to follow Dad's toughen him up directive, and a lot of it was that he was miserable in his own skin and took it out on me. He admitted he envied how well I did in school and how I seemed to have a clearer path, and instead of trying to improve himself, he tore me down. He said, none of that makes it right. I was wrong and cruel, and I'm so sorry. I actually believe his apology now. Time will tell if change sticks, but he's doing the work. My parents have been actively engaged in therapy too. My mom apologized to me more times than I can count for not protecting me. My dad, who is usually stone-faced, broke down crying in one session saying how he wishes he could take back the be the bigger man stuff, and how he realizes he failed us by letting things go on. There's a lot of guilt they're grappling with. I'm trying to forgive them as well. I know parenting doesn't come with a handbook for this stuff, but part of me is still angry it went as far as it did. At least now it's all out in the open. We even talked about that Christmas toast incident, and guess what? My dad did privately chew Jake out after that. I hadn't known. Not that it stopped him, but it was nice to know Dad did care in that moment, even if the public scolding was mild. As for Jake and me outside of therapy, we talk a couple times a week now. Just talk. It's weird and new. Sometimes it still feels like walking on eggshells, Like we're both afraid of slipping into the old dynamic. But he's been nothing but respectful. Like, he'll actually ask me for life advice or talk about a show he's watching and suggest I check it out. Things normal siblings might do. It's mundane and extraordinary at the same time for us. He's been keeping up with his individual therapy and medication, and it shows. The other day, completely unprompted, he said, "I was thinking about that time in high school I ruined your dance. I cringed so hard at myself. I'm so ashamed I did that to you." I didn't even know how to respond, except to say, "Yeah, that really sucked." Which might seem obvious, but for years we never even acknowledged those events. Now we can, and he's acknowledging the harm without being defensive or making excuses. It's liberating in a way. On the practical side, he found a new job. It's definitely a step down in pay and prestige from his old one, but it's something. Money will be tight for them for a while, but they've already made adjustments. They sold their house and moved to a cheaper rental. Tough for their pride, but necessary. And they traded in the fancy cars for a single-used minivan. He's actually budgeting and living within means now. I've helped where needed during the transition, but I'm pulling back financial help as he gains stability. He insisted on starting to pay me back for what I lent. I told him to focus on his family and we'd settle later, but he was adamant about setting up a small monthly repayment. I think it's a pride and accountability thing for him, which I can respect.